Okay, think about butter for a second. You probably just grab a stick from the fridge, you use it, and you don't give it a second thought, right? Well, what if I told you that simple yellow block is actually a tiny masterpiece of food engineering? Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the hidden science of this everyday staple. First things first, let's just toss out the idea that all butter is the same, because it's not. The kind you spread on your toast, that's just one of many, many different kinds, and each one has its own story that starts way before it ever hits your kitchen. You can almost think of it like a checklist. Was the cream sweet, or was it cultured and sour to get that tangier flavor? Did they add salt for taste and to help it last longer? And was it pasteurized for modern shelf life or made in a more traditional Desi style? Every single one of these choices creates a totally different product. But for all those variations, and trust me, there are a lot, there is one non-negotiable, ironclad rule that unites them all. It's a legal standard that officially says what can and what cannot be called butter. And here it is, the 80% rule. To legally wear the name butter, a product has to be at least 80% milk fat, and it can't be more than 16% water. Now, this isn't just some random number. This precise ratio is the entire foundation for why butter acts the way it does. It's why it melts perfectly in a hot pan, and why it stays solid on your counter. See, that 80-60 split is what creates something called a water and oil emulsion. The easiest way to picture this, imagine a sponge, but the sponge is made of fat. All the little water droplets are trapped inside the holes of that fat sponge. And it's this exact structure that gives butter its solid, yet totally spreadable texture, something that most other fats just can't pull off. So how in the world do you turn liquid cream, which is basically fat globules floating around in water, into a solid block of butter, which is water trapped inside fat? It's a really fascinating journey of a complete and total physical transformation. In any modern butter-making facility, this incredible journey really comes down to three main stages. First, you gotta prep the cream, then you force the transformation, and finally, you perfect that texture. It all kicks off with safety and stability. The cream is pasteurized, which just means it's heated up enough to get rid of any bad bacteria or microbes that could mess with the flavor or make the butter spoil faster. This gives you a totally clean slate for the real magic to begin. So the cream is prepped and ready. Now we get to the heart of the whole process, churning. And this isn't just about mixing. No, this is where a really cool scientific flip happens, turning a liquid completely inside out. Look at this. On the left, you've got cream. It's what's called an oil in water emulsion, basically tiny fat blobs just floating around. But the churning process is so violent that it forces a complete flip. The fat globules smash into each other, they break open, and they start sticking together, building a network that traps the water inside. And boom, you get the water and oil structure of butter on the right. There's actually a name for this, phase reversal theory. You can think of the churn as just controlled chaos. It's physically ripping apart the tiny little membranes that protect each fat globule. Once those are gone, the fat is free to grab onto other fat, building that fat sponge we talked about. That is the literal moment liquid cream becomes solid butter. But even after that amazing transformation, the job's not done. The churn doesn't just pop out a perfect stick of butter. What you actually get are these small, grainy clumps that are still swimming in liquid. This final stage is called working the butter, and honestly, it's a lot like kneading dough. The whole point is to squeeze out any leftover buttermilk, make sure the water and salt are spread out perfectly evenly, and, this is the important part, turn those grainy little clumps into one smooth, dense, spreadable block of butter. This final step is what gives you that smooth plastic mass. It is the difference between a crumbly, wet mess and the high-quality, consistent butter you buy at the store. This is what creates its signature texture, and it's why some butters are perfect for making flaky pastries and others not so much. All right, now for one last little surprise, a bit of commercial science that has a huge impact on the price and the texture of the butter you're buying. And it involves an ingredient you would never, ever expect: air. You know, in the industry, they talk about something called overrun. And for them, it's all about profitability. It's basically a measure of how much heavier the final butter is compared to the pure milk fat they started with. And where does that extra weight come from? Well, it's from the carefully mixed in water, salt, and yep, even tiny microscopic air bubbles.
And that number is very strictly regulated. The legal maximum for this overrun is 25%. That means for every 100 pounds of pure butterfat, a manufacturer can legally produce up to 125 pounds of finished butter, all while staying within that critical 80% fat rule. It's an incredibly precise calculation, balancing how much they can make with the quality of the final product.
So the next time you're making toast, just take a second and look at that butter. Are you seeing just a simple dairy product, or are you seeing a masterpiece of food engineering? From that violent inside-out flip of an emulsion to the precise calculation of overrun, every single step is this amazing blend of science and craft. Kind of wild to think about, all packed into one delicious golden block.